Welcome to another edition of Throwing Down Some Heavy Light. My name is Jamal Binder, and I'm the chair of a group called Movement I'm All for Race Equity. We go by the name more at times, and we deal with issues related to social justice, transparency, accountability, and anti-racism. Today, we have two special guests in the show today with us. We have Rachelle Tucker, who's a board member of Moore, and she has extensive experience in many areas. She worked for the Urban League of Nebraska, also the Omaha Housing Authority, and is currently the chief executive officer of Engage Insight Foundation. Rachelle also runs a consulting business, providing training, consultation services in public housing areas. Additionally, she works with young women in sports arena area, particularly in basketball. Uh, and one of the current programs that she directs, which is Engage Insight Foundation, is helping sponsor young adults to visit some of the historical Black colleges and universities. We also invited with her is Damiem Coran, who is also a program a curriculum supervisor with Partnership for Kids. He's worked for 12 years in OPS at Macmillan Magnet Schools, and he also has worked for over 25 years with youth and families in our community. He's engaged in mentoring program, and some years ago he got an award for mentoring from one of the organizations. Damien's works as the education director for Black Colleges and Curriculum Enrichment Tour. So both of y'all, welcome to the show. But I want to start off by saying a little bit. We're going to talk about some issues related to communication issues. We're going to talk about issues related to observations, nonprofit things like that, working with young people. Some things you see working with some of these young people in grassroots areas, and also things we should consider as we're helping some of the challenging times. We're in challenging times, obviously. So basically, I start off by asking each guest, share a little bit more about yourself, because I don't do a long-winded introduction, then we move right into the question. So start there, and then we'll move into that. Rachelle or Damien?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. Once again, thank you, Jamal, for this opportunity to be on the program and to allow me the opportunity to serve on the Moore board. Since I've been there, it's already been a pleasant experience. I love the movement. I love the things that we're going to do collectively, and that's really what Engage Insight is all about. It's about engaging our community, our youth, to level the field, whether it be in academics, health, sports. We know that we have underserved and under-resourced youth and families, and we want to make sure that we do quality programs that are going to be able to level that field so that they can be successful in those areas. So that's just a little bit more about me. I've been in this work over 35 years, and it's never ending. And at the same time, I'm always finding and learning and growing something new and trying to build traditional programs that are going to be impactful, not just an exercise or a service. So thank you for having me.
Good. Damien, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I'm happy to. And again, just as Rochelle said, thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here and speak with you. And, I'll keep it brief by just saying I've been out here working with students and families for over 25 years. And once upon a time, I was just like one of these kids in North Omaha. I grew up by Miller Park. So when we talk about the struggles, the things that the families face, the things that the kids are faced in terms of choices, I've been there and walked that walk. And so I'm happy to be a person that's out here working with the youth and talking the talk and being an example as well as a guide for the young people that I've been able to serve. And I look forward to continuing to do so. I'm proud to have served on the college tour for a quarter century, helping our Omaha youth get to and through their college of choice, hopefully at HBCU, but really it's about inspiring students to get to whatever educational option they want and desire and finishing strongly. So that's what I've been working at and looking forward to keep doing too. So thank you for having me. I'm honored to speak on this today.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of banter between the two of y'all. So you again, one may answer the question, the other may fill in. But I'm gonna start off, David, with you first. As I engage community members in leadership positions, we face numerous issues in our community. We spend most of our time, I guess you spend a lot of your time with Engage Insight Foundation. And maybe Rochelle, you may answer this a little bit more. I'm aiming at you a little bit, maybe also. What is your mission and why do you consider some of the significant activities of the organization to help our community? So again, both of you are involved in that, but help me tag team on how you would respond to that.
Well, I'll start by saying that our main mission, Jamal, is really about leveling the field. And I talked a little bit about it in the introduction, But just to expound on that, we as individuals and in our communities are pretty much left behind a lot of times. And so we have other communities that are growing. They have the resources, they have the money, they have everything that they need to be able to compete, to be able to get the education at a very high level. We believe that our community is just as important.
Hmm.
And a lot of times we can't do it the traditional way. So we can't necessarily go through the systems that have been created because sometimes it's just not a fit. So we believe in creating programs and opportunities, working with the best of the best in our community to be able to provide those opportunities so that we can level that field and they're just as competitive as they are with some of the other communities.
Good, good. Now, over the years, I've hosted many community forums, probably had the Guinness World Records in terms of the community forums we did many times in the community. And I interviewed many individuals in the community on some of the various programs and so on. One of the members I have is your role, someone at St. Martin Advisory Committee, speaking truth to power, helping young African Americans develop inner voice, so on. Again, both of you guys have been involved in that. And one of the questions we sometimes pose to people is, we as African Americans or people in the community we help, we speak certain ways down in the basement. We come upstairs, we don't have that situation. How can we have that voice a little bit more in your program and do more to help young people to see that what they about in different areas could be in other areas? So I'm throwing that as a general question to both of y'all.
I don't mind jumping in first on that. I mean, I love that you want to speak about how do we give the opportunities for our youth to have their voice
Right.
because
And the work
they're
that
the
you
ones
do.
that are going to be coming up next. And speaking as a person that works with youth and really works to provide opportunities for them to get out, speak, learn how to shine in those spaces. It really is about just that. Number one, you have to be a person that's seeking to give youth those opportunities and spaces to try to speak about their opinions, to have their voice in whatever programs you're a part of, and then following that up with some mentoring and guidance so that they you know actually know and can complete their thoughts.
Hmm.
And, lastly, for the youth, for anybody, it's really not just having a complaint, but also thinking about what their solutions are for that problem and maybe helping them shape it up a little bit or polish it up. But really, as I said, you're giving them their voice.
Hmm.
So that's where I start with. That's what I always do with my students, try and giving them opportunities to step up and do just that, speaking truth to power.
Gotcha. Rachelle, by the way, I learned that term from you. I'll throw that out just to say, coming out of the basement, going upstairs, having a similar voice. Talk a little bit more about that. Help me understand.
I mean, let's just be real. All of us have jobs and we all are trying to make money. We don't come from money. We don't have, well, some of us, you all, Jamal, probably have a long line of money over there, I'm sure, in your family.
Living large
But
on my Social Security check. Keep going. Grew
but
up.
if,
I
if
love
we're
it.
gonna
Keep
keep it
going.
real, we don't have generational wealth, right? So
I love it.
everybody's got to work, everybody's got to have a
There you
job.
go.
And they want to keep their job because they're there to provide for their family. So a lot of times when we say that we want to go into the basement, we go down, we want to have these real talks
There
and
you go.
we want to talk about what needs to be done, set up agendas, and yeah, and this person is done it and that, and the mayor's office is doing this and this, and then we come out and we got all these plans. When we come up from the basement, everybody got to go back to work.
I
So
love
when
it.
they go back to work, now they going back to what they know, and they got
Right,
to code switch because they got to keep the check coming in every two
right,
weeks.
right.
So we
Oh,
got to be a little more real about that. And we got to have a little more understanding so that when we are talking in the basement, people can feel like they can still go up and work, but there's still an initiative going on. But it's because those individuals know those systems.
right. You know,
So I will use, like, we talk about education. We don't need to be bringing people in from civic and this and that. Let's bring in retired educators.
right,
They know the system, right? They're going to be able to give us more an advocacy plan that then we push. And
right,
they can still get up out of the basement and go to work.
right. Got you.
So when we talk about that, and it's the same thing that we have to do with our youth, they have a false sense of confidence or a lack thereof because everything is tied to social media.
Got you. I
So
understand.
they can make their own faces, they can give muscles if I wanted them all, Jamal. They can dress themselves and it's a false sense of confidence because, like I said, I say we always good. You always Omaha good. I say
Right,
that to the kids all the time. But when we put you out in that ocean, because right now you're just in the pond.
right. I got
What
you.
you gonna do when you get out in that ocean? And we have to do a better job preparing our youth for that.
Right. I want to call it audibles we do in football. And David asked you a very pointed question. And based on your experience of working in schools and when you're mentoring and so on, do you find young people saying something to you privately that they won't say publicly in other places? In other words, when you mentor, you work in all these different arenas. Do they have the ability to speak to you truth to power? And can they do that in their other areas of what you do? Just give me a little insight to that, please.
Oh, that's an excellent question. I mean, I think
Wait, you
um,
didn't say that word excellent again. Say that again. I like to hear that word. I guess. Go
that
ahead.
was an excellent question, man. I appreciate where you're coming from. And just, it's the nature of the beast in working with youth that they have to know that you care before they're going to open up.
Hmm.
So, if you aren't being authentic with them and coming, with them in a real and true fashion, also respecting like what they're bringing to the table in the first place. So,
Gotcha.
students I work with talk a lot about like wanting to be respected up front, and where I think people of my generation and older may have learned that you got to automatically respect your elders. So that is a difference in how you have to approach, but also when you're giving them the opportunities. I mean, I'm honest with them. I work for a nonprofit. We got to take pictures. I'm like, hey, y'all, like these pictures are going to help us pay the bills. So my students know, that I'm being real about, the stuff that I'm doing, and that it is, like we're not being fake in the things that we're doing.
Gotcha.
I
Good,
say
good.
that stuff to the students on the college tour the same way I say that stuff to the students in P4K, that this is something that is a labor of love and that we're a family and working together.
All right.
So again, that goes back to what I said about them knowing that you're coming from an authentic and intentional, and you're really being direct with them about what you're doing.
One of the sad things sometimes we sometimes have two faces in some situations. People meet you outside of your workplace and they want to see if you're congruent. And one of the things we face sometimes is obviously you have to make audibles, but at the end of the day, they want to reach out to real people in the institution. Rachelle, I want to ask you a specific question. You're from Nebraska, you graduated from higher education in Kansas, and you traveled to many states. What is your observation of other places for those of us who rarely travel outside of Nebraska? And there are a lot of us who never leave our home base, but to give me a little insight. We always like to know what's it like on the other side of the pond or the river or whatever, but give me a little insight. And also, you went to Kansas. Give me a break. Should have went
I
to
mean, come
Nebraska.
on, Wichita State. Let's go Shockers. Right? You got to go where the money's at. I had a full ride track scholarship.
Okay, keep
You got
going.
to go with the money, right?
There you go.
So, but long story short, and I do believe in this, and I appreciate this question because yes, I came from a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution. But as I was matriculating through, and I had the opportunity to work for a black mayor in Denver as doing my internship, um, it changed everything for me as it relates to having that experience dealing with a Black administration, seeing the power in a Black administration. And then when I came home, I said, we need to share this from the athletic side all the way to the political side. We have got to prepare our young people because I wasn't prepared. I went for track and I was doing 3 a days. I was doing and the rigor of the academic and the athletic. And I wanted to come home and share that. And it was the same thing with the political arena and the education. When it's time to transition, I was finding that our community, our young people weren't ready. So
Hmm.
when we talk about that and what that looks like, what we're saying is that if you do decide to go to an HBCU, we just want to expose you to what all this post-secondary education opportunities offer you. And what my experience has been as it relates to watching through others, because I'm gonna keep it real, I did not go to a HBCU, but through the young people we have been able to help, I have seen supportive and culturally affirming environments. That's real, real.
No, yeah,
Because go
as,
ahead.
as you mentioned that, I'm reminded of I was teaching Black Studies years ago, and Clarence Barbie's son, I don't remember his first name because there's so many students go, but his last name was Barbie. And he went to HPC, and he said they used to call him Nebraska because he was the only Black person in his college from Nebraska. But the question I'm really asking is, I sometimes question as someone who went to University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and Omaha, why do Black people send their kids all the way to the South or historic Black colleges when you have supposedly good schools here? The other thing in my head, and I say, is you obviously make some good arguments for education and so on why you go there. But my real question is, could you have gotten any of that going to the University of Nebraska Lincoln or Kansas versus that? In other words, give me the nuances of why these trips are so important and why you really go there, or why people should consider sending
Yeah.
their kids to there versus some state supported where they may get some extra funding from the state or whatever, like Nebraska or whatever.
No, absolutely. I
Go
believe
ahead.
education is education, but I also believe that as you're going from high school transitioning to post-secondary education, there is an extended family network. And a lot of times at HBCUs, it gives you a safe place to explore your identity. It's a home away from home. It's an extension. The instructors look like you. Uh, you have communities around you. Your food is different. Your church community is different. It's an extension of that. Now, I'm not taking anything away from UNL, but sometimes it's harder to find your community.
Right, I
So
got you.
community means a lot when we look at success and what it looks like, because these are young people and they're still growing and developing. And even having that extended culture, even if it's a sport, like for track, that became my extension once I went to Wichita State, because that's a sense of community.
Got you.
HBCUs provide that, and they provide it on another level.
Got you.
Damien, did you want to add to that real quick?
Got you. Gave me the floor.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you think about HBCUs, number one, you're thinking about schools that have been doing more with less from the get-go.
True.
And, like we've been raising our students on survival in the first place. So they go to a place where everybody gets it when they go to a HBCU compared to if they go to a PWI. And we have great schools on
By the way,
both
y'all throw
sides.
these terms out. PWI, HBC,
Predominantly white institution.
got you. Thank you.
Versus historically Black college and
There you
university.
go.
University. Thank
And
you.
We didn't
and
have a glossary.
that's as Rachelle said, they have a family, they have a support system that's inherent. And just being real, those educators went to those colleges to work to help Black people succeed. And I
Got you.
don't know if you get that same vibe and that same focus even if you have a person of color as an instructor or professor at a PWI. Like those people that have committed to working at a HBCU, they just view it differently. They view their jobs differently, and they view the task at hand and supporting the students there very differently than you get at going to a Creighton or a UNL.
Got
And
you.
I went to UNO. I didn't go to a HBCU either, but having worked with students this long, that's something that I've seen time and time again, and also had the chance to experience myself as a person that's gone back to multiple schools and seen admissions professionals multiple years where we're also friends and they're also supportive of us because they know the work that we're doing is very important, not just about them having numbers, but as I said, they went to work there to help students of color succeed.
Got
So
you.
we're in this together, we're partners in this journey. And so that is a much deeper feeling of support. And then, to add to that, the students that go on those tours, that enroll in those schools, they see evidence of the networking opportunities, the networks of Black leadership, the networks of Black power positions that you just can't see here in Omaha because we don't have enough people in those positions.
Yeah, which I'm aware of that because one of the things having worked at UNO and elsewhere, I found out some of them African Americans or people of color don't even know each other. There's no
Yeah.
system in place to develop that camaraderie. I'm going to
And
switch.
Ajima, I just wanted to say, and most importantly, the opportunity to connect to their heritage.
Right.
They're not
Which
getting
is
it. They're not getting it in school.
right. Right. No, you're right. I
So,
agree. Right.
those are things that are very important. I just wanted to make sure we talked about the heritage.
Yeah, and again, some of these places, like when I went to Lewis and Clark versus Horseman or King Science Center, it's named today, or whatever, it's different when you got people who know your family and have a connection, and you don't have to double talk and beg your pardon. What do you mean by that? No, they know that. I want to ask you, Michelle, and this is a switch up, really. Many believe that we should help people engage in local and national public policy issues. And again, one of my questions is, what advice would you advise to people who prefer not to vote or engage in public policy, such as right to elected officials? We just talked about why you go to historically Black colleges and so on, but give me a little feedback on how you would address that. Because I think we got some challenging issues, and one of the issues we're saying, how do we get more involved with our students and people to do more in our arena, regardless of where they go, to higher education?
And then I'm going to throw it to Damien. But my initial thought is that we've got to get away from the grandiose ideas and quit letting other people tell us that it's okay that you just got the medal, and we got to go get the number one seat. We got to be prepared, and we got to
Wait,
prepare.
hold, help me a little lost there. You threw a metaphor out there. You get
Yeah,
the medal, and then you get the number of seat. Break that down a
everybody
bit
gets
more.
the medal. You know, that whole
Oh, okay, got
that,
you.
oh,
Okay,
just because the participation medal,
I got you.
everybody gets the medal. No, we want the number one spot. And we have to be intentional about going to get that number one spot. But the way we do it is not necessarily playing into everybody else's systems. It's us creating our own and bringing the best of the best
Got you.
around us, and then holding our young people accountable, holding our families accountable, because we're educating all along the way.
That's true.
So if I want to show you how to be a D1 athlete, because I was a D1 athlete, I can show you that. If I want to show you how to get into a HBCU, me and Damien, we've been through that. We've gotten lots of kids accepted, but there is a process and you have to be disciplined. And there's a foundation that we work from that we can't compromise.
I understand.
So instead of having all these different programs going on, we got to find a way to come together, be more collaborative, build more partnerships so that they're impactful and not just experimental.
That makes sense. Damien, fill in on this.
Well, I've got to say, you got to recognize that the messages being handed down are different. You know, we may have come up with relatives and, elders that impressed upon us the value of voting and the value of civic engagement in a different way. And for whatever reason, if there's a generation of parents that aren't impressing upon their young people the same way, that means that it's inherent in us to make sure when we have those opportunities to interact that we're not just being the finger shaking old head, but that we are really talking about the things that they see in their face. And I mean, we seen it right here in Omaha. We got our first Black mayor. So when you want to think about does your vote count or not, we have evidence right here in Omaha that we can speak to where, yes, look, this is what happens when we did work together, when we got a candidate we liked and supported. And I'm speaking with all hope in Mayor Ewan having a great career as a mayor, but just the fact that we were able to achieve something Omaha has never done before with a Black person in leadership goes right against all those people that would say to me, my vote doesn't count.
Right.
And so I can talk with them and actually have had that conversation with my friends recently because I know people that say that stuff to me. So it doesn't have to be about like, oh, what your grandmother, may have marched for, or, I said to Rachelle Tucker earlier, like, how you going to know about John Lewis and still say, I'm not going to vote. But the fact is, we got John Ewan right here. So we have something we can talk about as a city that helps counteract that my vote doesn't count attitude.
Apathy and so on. It's funny you would say that. It reminded me of that. My father's from a place near Tillette or somewhere not about an hour and a half from Little Rock, so on. And he never voted until President Obama ran for office. My sister basically said, "You something like Dad, if you don't vote, he may not win." That was the first time he ever voted in his life. Now, my mother's very active involved, but some people don't know how important it is to vote, but also to follow up. And I know how important that can be to get our young people involved in public policy because, again, half of the challenge is showing up and we don't show up. We only got like maybe 7 minutes, so I want to get to a couple of questions where we end up here. I want to say we're facing really serious issues on the national level, local level. There's been cuts in social service programs and so on. There's funding shortages in Omaha, you name it. And I want to throw both of y'all this question. Can we survive looking at the climate we see now under the present administration as African Americans or low income people in this community?
I mean, I'm gonna jump in on that and say this is not a new story. Like our organizations, our communities have gone through this before. And so now more than ever, we have the tools to collaborate, and collaboration is the key for survival. Like there's opportunities when we partner, and there's a growth of opportunities when more than two of us partner, when we really collectivize and work together in spite of or alongside of our individual missions of our organizations.
Right.
We will be able to survive and possibly thrive in spite of whatever curveballs the administration is going to throw us. But if we want to be in silos and just focus on, well, this is what I do and not how can I work with another organization, that's a recipe for failure, even without Donald Trump being crazy.
Oh, wow. Notice I didn't mention any names today. I'm trying to be apolitical and dealing with some of the craziness that's going on out there. One of the things I remember one of my mother's best friends in Charlotte says, as people who are low income, people of color, we should not be I writers. It's not about I, it's about us as a collective. And some people don't hear that because sometimes I be in meetings, people talk about I what? I what? Anyway, let me switch up because I know we got just a couple of minutes so we open it up to people. Some of us have children who have moved out of the house and unaware of issues facing young people of this generation. And again, there's a divide and rule out there. We also have different worldviews. I've heard some local pundits or so-called community advocates blame older people, you name it. And as someone who's been in contact with many youth in both of your positions, how are they different or similar from folks in previous generations? I'm talking about some of those older folks who've been through the mills, but paint a picture because I don't deal with a lot of young people today, except maybe my grandkids on one level, but not in the way that both of you do in terms of professional, social level. So talk to me a little bit different what you see today that I may not see as someone who's not in contact with them.
I guess I'll start out with that. The first thing that we see that they are a digital age and everything is attached to their phone or a computer. And I think I mentioned it earlier where they can kind of create their own reality. So when we look at engaged insight, the EI is the beginning of each word. So what we really like to focus on is the emotional intelligence. And the reason why we need to do that with youth, because if we don't focus on their emotional intelligence and build it, then artificial intelligence will take over and they will start to develop our kids' minds because they're so connected to the digital. You feel me, Ajmal?
I understand what you're saying.
So I'm saying that we have to be a lot more strategic and we have to allow our parents, because these kids lack confidence or have a false sense of confidence that doesn't put them in the position like with us. If you told me to run through a brick wall and I believed in you, Jamal, I'm running through the brick wall. Now they're going to go Google it first and say you might stump your toe when you go through the brick wall. Now I'm not doing that because the Google says. So we have this era of individuals where they don't trust, they rely on the digital divide. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to create a platform to build their confidence in a different way. The one thing I will say happened to me that was the best thing is when I went to college, they broke me down and then they built me back up in the way that I should be in order to be an elite athlete. Because I thought I was good, but I was only Nebraska good. I'm just being honest. When I got there, there's people from Jamaica. They were from all over just running me out off the track. I said, what is going on? But at the end of the day, I'm saying that all to say that it's the same thing, whether it's education. It doesn't matter what arena it's in. We've got to go back and build that trust. And when we take kids on the college tour, I promise you they don't come back the way they left.
Good.
Because we're working with them the whole way to channel a different type of confidence, but not take away who they are.
That makes sense. Damien, you want to respond? What do you see with some of the young people in the work that you do?
Well, I think that it's more fruitful spending time, giving them the opportunity to voice and, show you more of what they got to deal with. So I'm lucky in that my job presents those opportunities. And I think, for a parent, it's got to be like, hey, let me, work with my kid to figure out like how we can, start a business with AI type conversations. Like you've got to be thinking about how can we adapt these coming changes to fit, what my kid is going to need, what my student is going to need. So being a little bit strategic about the stuff that's coming down the pipeline, because we're headed for big changes when it comes to technology. And I think most of us in here can't even imagine what's really about to happen. So that's where you got to partner with your kids. And as I said, to answer the first question, you got to give them opportunities to step up and try the stuff, give them some mentoring and guidance so that when they make mistakes, they don't, get down on themselves and they're ready to try again. And then also like really be ready to applaud when they do succeed, because like that's what we're here for in the first place.
Yeah, we're right up on 6:30, but before we switch to the participants, anything you want to say last minute before we switch over and let the people participate in engaging you directly?
Yeah,
Audience.
the only thing I'm going to say is I'm a big fan on culture. And I believe when you create a culture, you can create success. And it's us as the leaders in this community that have to be able to create a safe space, at the same time hold young people accountable, and to make sure that we are not just playing to them, but building them. And my favorite phrase is let go so that they can grow.
I like that.
It's up to us though to provide those tools so that they can have that.
Yeah. Damien, any closing before we move over to the audience participation?
I mean, I gotta be an advocate. I've mentioned it a few times. We need more mentors. I think we need more grown-ups to just take a little bit more time to reach back. All of us benefited from somebody doing that for us. So it's up to us to keep that part of the journey going too, because that's part of the solution to the questions we've been asking in the first place.
Good. We're ready to open it up. Folks who want to ask any of our guest questions directly, type in the chat, but this is the opportunity to engage them directly on anything related they said or something related to the topic. So forever hold your peace. I will say I actually did go to I don't know if it was Spelman, Atlanta, Georgia, but I was visiting my sister in Atlanta some years ago. She drove me through a college campus. Now, again, someone who's familiar with the UNO and Lincoln campuses, it was smaller, older built. It looked a little bit like a community college to me. Again, I just drove through it, and it was like probably on a weekend where nobody was there. But it also reminded me of a college when I was in Africa. It was a little bit smaller, but it was not. It didn't have the major money, but I just know that she showed me where it was and so on. But again, I didn't get a chance to talk to anyone because we did a drive through, not a drive by. Other feedback, other reactions, other comments. By the way, does it cost more to get a historically black college? Or is it, would you say the same to the same federal money? How does that work?
It's usually less
Cheaper.
than the colleges locally,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, but not figuring in the transportation like plane tickets and stuff.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
had no clue what it costs to go to one. I
But
just
just comparatively, UNO costs more than a whole bunch of HBCUs.
did not know that. I know they get federal money like other universities and colleges, and they are accredited, and people graduate. And again, back in the day, I read a number of African American books and stuff. Some of our great leaders, because of segregation, they went on to do very well nationally and locally, in spite of some of the challenges they face in some of those historically black colleges and universities. Other feedback.
Looks like we got a question here.
Okay, throw out.
Oops. I'd lower my hand now that I've been acknowledged.
Okay, good. I'm glad we got people helping out because sometimes I don't always see everything. Sister, go for it. Cynthia.
Thank you. I want to say Rochelle, but you pronounced it Rachel?
Rochelle.
Oh, Rochelle. Okay.
It's Rachelle. Yes.
And Damien. I misspelled it. I was putting an A instead of an E. My apology to myself. No. Um, I'm a substitute teacher at this point in the Catholic schools. And it was a real education for me to be subbing. Pre-COVID was most of my subbing time. To be at All Saints, where the majority of the students were new African background. They were the Sudanese. Before that experience of subbing, I was teaching adult education, math and English, and eventually GED. And I met a lot of the other people from other African countries. Going to the school, then I met the children of those parents who probably came here, and then the children. Well, I think most of the kids I met were born here. Currently, I have been connecting with the Somali, Sudanese, Karen at another place. And as I watch the young people, I think back on some of the comments from my GED American Black students. I'll put it that way, Black with a capital B, whereas the others are the new American Black. What is your experience with the youth from these new African families. It seems to me those who are biased or white attitudes towards some of our people of color, it seems to me the youth are going to be experiencing that or facing it. And I wondered, what's your experience with our new citizens? I'll put it that way.
Well, I've had the privilege, the distinct privilege of working with several different cultures in my work at Macmillan over the past 12 years. And, I find most of them to be supremely motivated when it comes to wanting and striving for educational goals. Partnership for Kids actually helps students with a scholarship for college. And so we have several students from multiple cultures and immigrant families that are on our scholarship roster. So it speaks testament to their hard work, because every single one of them that I've talked about, whether it's the journey to learn English as well as learn how to do school here, or whether it's just having to translate for their family all the time as well as do school here, a lot of them go through things that we just can't even, contemplate a 14-year-old having to do. So the ones, like I said, it's been a distinct pleasure to help them with their goals. But at the same time, I have seen where just the cultural difference can really make the families bump their heads, where, just the kids adapt faster to what America presents than the parents do. And so that is a hurdle that I think we as a community could do a better job of embracing these families and guests in our area and helping them with their young people, because that's something that we obviously know more about, whether it's like the parts of town or whatever to, avoid. Or, I have a sister that works in education at the TAC building and has talked about, like, there are people that just like are determined to prey upon them.
Right,
So
right.
like really, really being willing to and address and call out some of that stuff in our community. And like I said, providing some more open and holistic arms for them, for their youth, because like I said, the kids are going to adapt to what America presents a lot faster.
We got
That's
about
been
three.
my
We got
experience.
about three questions out, and I want to see if we can get to all of them. But Cheryl, quickly, Rachelle, just a straight question: have
Yeah.
you had immigrant kids go on your Black college tour, like the Somalis, as they said, the Sudanese, and some of those with other, as they say, indigenous-born African Americans?
Yeah, and I was just going to speak to Cynthia's question because yes, we have, and yes, we needed to do some adjustments. So we worked with like the Simple Foundation, where we create a community within a community to still do the Black College Tour. And we want to make sure it's culturally specific to those individuals. So
Gotcha.
we haven't had a chance to partner with them to do the Black College Tour. But what we found is that when they did go with us, there was some cultural things that we needed to address. So we just needed to be 100. We worked with the Simple Foundation, where they helped us to understand that community, where then we wanted to then do a tour for that group. So
Gotcha.
Cynthia, I go back to collaborations and partnerships are very important.
Somebody came on Facebook, Suzanne King for President,
Mhm.
asked, can you talk more about how you build culture within a group when groups and kids have different lived experience? Susan,
Cynthia, I mean, Susan, I think that that is a
man,
great question. And anytime you are starting or developing a program, there is a foundation of principle. And the foundation of principle are things that you don't go away from. Now, you might create different ways of getting to that. But at the end of the day, in order to create the culture, and we know that in order to have, if you have a team, you have to at least have 7 that have the same type of mindset for it to take over the culture. So what I would say is what we do is we create practice and procedure, and then we do the encouragement to get a majority of the culture, because then the rest all have to fall in line. They
very good.
have to fall in line. So I hope that answers your question. We found that to be very, very, very successful. The other thing that we do is we try not to stay in one place for too long. You're not gonna find us in Atlanta for 3 days. Kids get too comfortable.
Oh,
We're
okay.
moving. We are moving. So if we on a right, Damien, if we on a 7 day, we are moving every day, because the very minute kids get comfortable, that's when things get chaotic. They
Right.
need to be moving a lot. So That's how we work our culture. I hope that helps.
By the way, I have no clue, and maybe I'm not reading well. When you talk about a tour, what kind of numbers are we talking when you go with a group of young people? Give me a number.
Yeah,
Just
so
random.
we will definitely never have more than 50. We
Okay,
have taken two motor coaches. Our philosophy is quality over quantity. You have a lot of people who will take three or four motor coaches, but we really want these kids to come back with an impact.
gotcha. There's another question up here. It says,
Sure.
Norman B says, a lot of Black talents leaving Nebraska. How can we invest and engage young people to stay and build the Omaha community? Reason, I think it's a wonderful question that some of my colleagues who went to school with me back in the day, before they invented dirt, we say sometime, they went to a Black college. They didn't come back. And they, again, some people go there and then people show them the love in other places. So we're challenged with this dichotomy of some people who go places. We really want them to come back and help in our community, particularly if we nurture them. So how do we deal with that paradox or that kind of challenge that we face as folks who live in Nebraska or in Omaha?
I
I
mean,
can start. Go ahead, Damien. Do you want to go ahead?
no, go ahead, Rachelle.
No, I just really, really believe it. I'm very, very adamant about this. Even when I was at the Urban League, it's important we hold these corporations to the fire. It's important that if they want them to come back, they have to be vested in order to understand how to grow their company and the community. And there's other programs out there for people who go to HBCUs. So many times as I look at education and how we have done things, we have to get back to owning our own narrative and determining what's in the best interest of our community. We've gotten away from that because we just started chasing the money.
Right.
So we have so many nonprofits that have needed the money. We've let other individuals come in and kind of define us. We got to turn that back around where they're coming to us. So we're telling them what we need. And I do believe that they will listen. I do believe that.
As you raise both those points, one thing that hit me, I got into a Facebook rant with somebody this weekend about the whole concept of people who get their scholarships back in the day. As soon as they got their 4 years done, they left the state and went elsewhere because oftentimes some of these racist or hostile environments locally, they didn't want to stay there. So in other words, there were people, institutions, I'm not going to mention school systems or universities who have these scholarships or whatever things where you call grow your own. But once they get the degree, somebody make them a better offer and they jump ship and leave. And again, we are left here holding an empty pot. Even some of this is taxpayers' money. And so one of the things I've challenged this person on Facebook and elsewhere, create an environment where people want to stay here. And as our mother used to say, if you got a certain amount of love, respect, and you also got people showing you whatever you can live anywhere. In Kalahari Desert, you can live in Alaska, you name it. Go out for vacation every now and then. But the issue is the amenities are there that you don't want to leave. But some of these environments, and I've seen it because I've worked in some of them, they don't even talk to each other. They feel nervous. They don't have that love or that sense of mom's potato salad or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. But until you create that environment, you can offer different kinds of things to send it to people. But as soon as they get a chance to jump off the ship, especially when it's not appropriate and they're serving their culture well, and again, we have some of those problems. We got about 15 minutes left or so, and I wanted to throw another question out at both of y'all.
Jamal, I just wanted to add to what you said. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Every environment has a culture. The biggest thing that we found out through this body of work is that some of these environments don't fit our culture, or we don't fit that culture. And they've already determined what that majority culture is. So either you make the adjustment or you have to build something to build a culture. So there's some kids who do well in the Midwest playing basketball. We've gotten a lot of girls in basketball, but the way that we teach, coach, and train, a lot of them go down south. That culture is different. So we have to be respectable of that because we don't want people in environments where they're not going to be able to be successful and they don't have an appreciation for their culture. Sorry about
Oh, no problem. Good. Because I think one of the things we have to be is didactic and also banner on some of these issues. Because again, we need eclectic input and need different viewpoints to make the better mousetrap, as we say. I see there's another question in the chat. Maya says, what do the young people see as the biggest challenge or barriers to reaching their goals? And what things can people who want to support them do to help address those goals in a sense? Either one of you can respond, obviously, or both.
I'm gonna be a little facetious at first because we ask students this all the time, and the number one answer, which stinks, but it's their teachers. And I'm not blaming teachers. I'm just saying like the style of education, the system of education that we use, it often is a bit of the doldrums, or it breaks the kids instead of inspires them. So I'll get off of a soapbox on that, but just say that it's up to us to provide a wealth of alternative opportunities of exploration. Stuff like the college tour is one of those things, because we not only visit the colleges, but we have cultural engagement the whole way that fleshes out what the kids are seeing and learning about. So we can do that right here in Omaha with Omaha stuff. It is just, and piggybacking on your previous question, if you want people to stay, they got to know about opportunities to grow.
Right.
So those two things go hand in hand. And, we have to help people learn that those opportunities to grow are here, and show, and also like sometimes hold their hand and give them a piggyback ride to go get to it.
Right. Very good. Michelle, did you want to respond anyway to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond and say, to be totally honest, we have to find a way to meet young people where they're at. So when we developed our program and we decided to do the Whitney Young Academy, we wanted to use educators, people who were going to be teachers, to be able to flesh out our curriculum and implement it in the high schools. Thus, we got Mr. Damiem Coran. And what he realized in talking to him is that he was able to do things on the community side that he couldn't necessarily do in the system as it related to Black studies,
Gotcha.
as it related to educating. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
We created a space. We paid him a stipend. Didn't we pay you, Damien, or no? I think we did.
Hey, don't put his business all in his
Hey, I'm just saying, but
I
and it was a stipend.
Yeah, wait, hold on. I
was
started driving a
acknowledged.
Lexus or something. You paid me a lot of money, David. We'll watch out.
Oh, don't call it a lot of money.
Don't call it a lot. Remember, this is at the Urban League.
Oh,
But
okay.
those are the type of things that we want to do. Where not only did Damien serve as a mentor, but he served as a specialist. He was getting his education, and we were giving back to his education. So doing those things, and they were a lot more, they didn't want to see me no more, Al-Jamal, me coming through the high schools. So it was about making it more relatable. And it was really about being able to be available so that young people can grow and learn.
Gotcha. As you mentioned that, one of my young sisters made a comment to me years ago, who's a retired educator. She says, every young person needs a mentor, someone in their life who's not part of their family, to help them out. And then another thing I like to share is that when I was in junior high school, Mr. Hagman, I'm sure he's late now, made me stay after school and conjugate the verbs and do some stuff. And I tell you, at the time I was very angry with him, but he saw some potential in me. And I even to this day, I mentioned his name because it's like praise of him pulling me out and saying, hey, you got to learn how to know the was and we and the were and so on. And later on, when I was in junior high, also I took typing in high school. Most young men weren't taking typing, but when I went to university, I didn't pay a penny for typing my papers out. But somebody pulled me aside and gave me advice that I may not have gotten in my family because we came from very low income, poor families. So some of these things about colleges we didn't know. Those of us who were the first generations to graduate from college in our family. So it was very important to have adults and people helping out other people. And sometimes if we come from families where we've never had higher education, somebody needs to pull us aside and say, you got all this potential. I see it. You got to just learn how to channel it. We have other people on here, other feedback. We got about 10 minutes left or so. Other reactions.
Right. Question for you, for the group. Can you maybe compare and contrast a student who you may have worked with who went to an HBCU versus a student who went to a PWI? And what are some of the differences you've seen in those two students?
That is a very, very good question. And I have an excellent example that's going to take me less than hopefully a minute and a half. We had a young lady, both of them went on the Black College Tour. One got a full ride scholarship to Creighton. The other got a full ride scholarship to Xavier University. And they both got the same scholarship from both places. One went to Creighton, one went to Xavier. Within 6 months, the one that was Xavier went to Creighton, and the one that was at Creighton ended up going down to Xavier. The one that was Xavier got her degree and then went on to a PWI to get her master's degree. And the one that went to Creighton got her undergraduate at Creighton and then went on back to Xavier to get their doctorate. And they're both doctors, they're both traveling abroad. And the biggest thing I would say was the difference in them was their maturity in terms of where they were personally. So one was just a little more needed to be closer to home. She went too far too quick. So she needed that 4 years to get her degree at Creighton, and then she was ready, and now she travels all over the world. And the other one, she was a little more robust and wanted to do track and have that whole HBCU experience. And she wasn't getting that at Creighton and had a lot of distractions with her family. So her going away was best for that. So it's really kind of up to the individuals. But what I see in them both is that for them and themselves, they had to look at what was going to be the best environment and culture for them. I hope that answered that.
Good. We got 2 minutes. Something that just came to mind as you said that. Has there been do you know anything if there's been a national comparative analysis of HBCs and traditional white colleges and universities? Is there anything out there that you've ever seen or research on whether it be attitude, academic achievement, income, any of that? Have you seen anything in any of the academic literature or anything like that?
That was actually something I had the opportunity to present on for the Code Conference back in 2022, I believe, where I talked specifically about President Biden's money that he was given to HBCUs and the return on investment that we get from HBCUs. And as I said earlier, like, number one, those colleges have been doing more with less in the first place. So, we have a historical panoply of Black excellence and Black achievement that came specifically out of HBCUs for the vast majority of their beginning existence, because that was just where Black people could go. And so, like, without getting into any specific stats, like, we had colleges that during pre-civil rights movement were creating doctors and lawyers and people that were starting their own businesses.
Right.
So even an objective like study isn't going to be able to really talk about the true return on investment, because how do you adjust for pre-civil rights segregation? But just being real, I mean, we're talking about for every single dollar comparatively at a HBCU versus a PWI, the HBCUs are going to trump that dollar almost every single time to a school.
Gotcha.
So, like I said, I don't have to go into specific stats because I don't have that set of notes with me that I used for that presentation. But that is one of the things that has come out hands down, is just that you get a better value for your buck at an HBCU.
All right. Michelle, do you want to say anything on that one?
No, I think Damien hit it on the head. The only thing I would add to that is that when you go to an HBCU, what we've seen in some of our youth is the maturity level changes. There's a sense of pride, like a lot of people want to go back to the yard. So they take a lot of invested interest in their school and their school pride, where, sometimes people might go to Creighton and they never go back to a game, or they never go back. So there's this sense of pride that comes along with being a part of an HBCU. And not only that, I will honestly say that some of the young people we have coming from HBCUs are built different. Remember, I talked about that breaking down and building them back up? You will find that as a HBCU, them instructors, they are not going to let you get away with it. They might be calling you saying, why didn't you make it to class today? The class sizes are smaller. They can take more attention to detail with you as an individual. So those are just some of the benefits. And for some of us, we need that, right?
Right. No,
we need that. Our mama is waking us up every morning to go to school.
No,
but we might need that when we go away. You're
Right.
not going to get that necessarily at a huge institution.
Right. Meaning, my Crawford Gray, you have a question? You can go ahead, or feedback directly to the guest.
Oh, I just wanted to add real quickly, since we were talking about HBCUs and I was doing some studying of African American history, and I found something interesting. And what I found out, they said that 80% of our doctors and dentists are graduates still from HBCUs, Howard, and I think it is Meharry in Memphis, Tennessee. So I thought that was really amazing that 80% of the doctors, Black doctors, I should say, in the United States come from two HBCUs. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there when we were discussing HBCUs.
You know, I read a book written Dr. Pat Velasquez. I read a book called Bad Mexicans, which is an unusual term, but it's a fascinating book. And as we were talking, we learned, I didn't know there was traditional Hispanic universities in college the same way. And he talked about some of the same similarities that we talk here. We're down to the last 5 minutes. Before we close out, I want to give both of y'all an opportunity. Any last minute things you want to say to our participants? And also, how can they contact you to learn more about your programs?
Want me to start? Okay.
I'm like, okay, well, how do they catch up
I
with
know,
you?
I know, I know.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
would just say, first, I would just say, once again, thank you for this opportunity, Al Jamal and more, for having us here today. Secondly, what I would say is that let's be intentional as it relates to being able to open our young people's mind for them to be able to see the possibilities, understanding the understanding our obligation to making sure that they're able to thrive in the real world. So being intentional, having accountability, having expectations, but doing it in love with a non-traditional lens.
Gotcha.
So that's where I would leave things.
Damien, any closing comments or things you want to share with our participant audience?
You know, I would just say that I think each of us has benefited from somebody taking the moment to notice something within us and helping us dig deeper into that and letting it shine. So I think we all have a responsibility to reach back to one or two young people and try and do that for them in whatever way you can. So it's going to be different for each one, and you have to be intentional and authentic. You can't fake that. But I think that's something that, you know, we can do as a community that doesn't take an organized program. It doesn't take, you know, a leader, a mayor, a sheriff or whatever to get out there and be behind it. As long as you're doing that for, you know, the young people around you, I think we'll all be better.
Good. Well, I appreciate both of y'all, Rachelle Tucker, Damiem Coran, being here to share some light on this topic. And you know, it's fascinating. As long as I've been in the city, I don't remember a lot of conversations in the public airways about historically Black college and university, the tours. I do know the Urban League and other entities have done that over the years, but I don't remember a detailed explanation of some things y'all provided today. So really appreciate that. And hopefully we can have you come back again and share what's it like after you get back somewhat a little bit more detail and maybe at some point encourage more people to participate. But thank you very much for participating. We make a couple of quick announcements. We're going to try to do more of these in-depth interviews with folks. We don't have this from our traditional media, but next we're going to have Maya Crawford Gray talks about some of her experience with education. She's one of our participants today, so we're going to have her talk about some things she's done over the years at different locations and as a education advocate. We're hoping to have one of the physicians that I know who deals with cancer and oncology and things like that. A lot of our young people and people are experiencing some of these devastating issues, and they don't know about what's available in our city. And we got one of the best cancer institution and healthcare entities, but they don't do a great job of getting stuff in our community. So one of the things we're going to do is try to push that a little bit better. How do you get more preventive cares? And, you know, again, when you got technology in the state of art, medicine, income issues can be a factor. But how do we talk more about that from a community's perspective? So we're going to do that. And then the last shameless plug I'm going to make is that we're going to have a major historical conference on October the 4th at the Learning Community. We're going to have more on our webpage about that. But we want to talk about why is history important in Omaha. I just got through reading Adam Fletcher's book that deals with African Americans in Omaha from the 18th century up until so on, 2000. And I did not know things, even though I taught at the university level of Black studies and elsewhere, about contributions of Black folks or African Americans in this city and in this state from reading some of the historical documents that he researched in newspapers. I didn't know much about Black fraternity and sororities. I never was a part of that. So we talk about that. I didn't know much about why education and literacy is a big issue. So we're going to have Catrice Jackson talks about that. And then the other thing that's very important is what we do today is how do we get young people and old people to be in the same room and have a conversation about intergenerational divide? I hear some of us saying negative things about young people as older people, and young people saying negative things about older people. And again, those of us who learn how to respect our elders, it's time to shut your mouth up in certain situations, and some of them haven't learned that. So I would like to have us participate in this historical conference. We've gotten support from 4 or 5 different organizations, but get us in the same room where we can be in one voice to advance our agendas and our culture and things like other groups do, so that we're not doing all this negativity. But I appreciate us coming together today, and I appreciate both our guests. As we always end, may the force be with you. Baroko.